Hey guys, few designs with a bit of a lesson tutorial here for y'all. In this series we'll be working on how to sculpt a character. This will be done from beginning to end. It'll be done on a bit of an intermediate level, but if you're not too fully familiar with the platform, I think you'll be able to generally follow along with it. We'll have a bit more of advanced tutorials later on, nice lessons, and well, this is exclusive to y'all as subscribers, so I hope you like the content. And without any further ado, let's just get into it. Let me just explain to you the kind of things we'll be going through, and this is our table of content. Okay, so we'll be working through a 13-part series, and to start off with, we will block out the head. We will then sculpt in the detail of the head. We'll block out the torso, do the torso's front detailing, and then do the torso's back detailing. We will block out the upper limbs, sculpt in the detail of the upper limbs. This will be with consideration of muscle structure, of course. This is a pretty in-depth course. We will block out the hand and with its phalangeals, and then sculpt in the detail of that. We will block out the lower limbs. We will then sculpt in the detail of the lower limbs, block out the feet, and then sculpt in the detail of the feet after. So the rhythm is pretty standard here. You'll know kind of what to expect as the videos flow through, and I'm separating the blocking out with the detailing so you can kind of have a better organized structure of how you work through them. Anyway, without any further ado, let's jump into the first one. We will be blocking out the head. Alrighty. Okay, well, to start off, open whichever version of Blender you have. I've got version 2.93.1, and if you don't know how I know that, it's written over there. Okay, this is not gonna be primarily like in a beginner's tutorial. I won't be showing you generally everything like interface and all of that, as the title of the video says and the intro has suggested to you. We'll just get into the fundamentals of how to get the job itself done, how we shall sculpt the head. So to start off with, we'll just go into our sculpt mode. Makes it easier. We have our rounded cube here ready for use. This is one of the easiest and best ways to work with, the best mesh to start with. So with your with the rounded cube selected and active, as you can see, I'm using a brush. I'll give you a little bit of brush inputs during this. For one, make sure that you are working with a grab brush, or let me rather show you that way first. Select the grab brush. As you can see, it's the yellow one highlighted. The brushes are always in the same color as their icon color is. Make sure you have your smooth fall off. Also, depending on what type of character you want, but since we're just doing basic blocking out of the head, just smooth fall off is good enough. With a medium strength of the brush is good enough. Scale it up. I prefer to work with it in such a way that, as you can see, the inner circle, which represents where the gradient will begin, if that makes sense to you. So considering that there's a fall off, make sure your fall off is smooth, as mentioned. And if you come here to cursor being the actual object, most of y'all know. Sorry if it sounds very undermining to some of you, but here it shows you what the fall off is. You can adjust these, preferably don't, and just keep it standard. I mean, the brushes are perfect as they come, but you know, if you're a bit of an advanced Blender user, you can adjust these for yourself and actually kind of set up the brush to work to favor you and how you prefer to work. Yeah, so smooth fall off selected. Grab brush, go into front view, front orthographic. If you select front view, it won't give you anything else except that. And actually, for one, let me do this. I don't need to go there. Let me just activate the screencast keys so you can kind of follow along just here in the bottom left corner of what I press and do not press. So we'll come to the rounded sphere, selected from kind of like about a fifth or a fourth down, a quarter of the sphere in terms of the front view, and click and drag that down with your X symmetry active, so about a quarter there. And the reason why you want to do it this way, you'll notice, is that you want to make as much use of your UVs as possible, your normals, if you prefer it that way. So when you're dragging it out, you still have enough topology around the back to be able to extrude out and grab and pull out a neck for your sphere. So this is kind of an easy way to go about it without having to go into activating your dynamic topology or anything of the sorts. So then we pull out the chin, the mantle, as we drag it down. Then you drag out on the sides to build in the, I guess, the higher form, your forehead. The technical term for what a forehead is, in case if you are pretty curious, it's called your frontal bone, for one, in the most basic form. It's called the frontal eminence when you're specifically looking at, if you know these, you've got these bulging little corners in front of your forehead that kind of feel like horns. Like, you know, if you were gonna draw like a demon or a devil thing, you would kind of make, I don't even know why they draw them that way, but you know your cliche devil picture where you extrude those horns, that's actually called the frontal eminence. If you study your anatomy, find some anatomy books. The stuff is useful for you. It will help you sculpt a lot better because you'll understand the anatomy. You'll know which parts of the anatomy to inflate, which ones to deflate, where to increase volume, where to reduce it. You know, it's very useful. When I started off, I always figured maybe, you know, I like studying, I like knowledge, so I don't have a problem with it. But I never understood exactly why that would be so relevant. But it's relevant because it's very useful. It makes sculpting a whole lot easier. You won't find yourself having to do things and keep redoing over and over because you have a general understanding of anatomy, and your characters will become more believable when you work with them. So anyway, as we extrude to fill out the volume of that cranial there, you know, we've got this general nice oval look of a face, which in general faces are oval but square out a little bit towards where the jawline is. So generally your jawline will stick out at about, let's say, about a quarter or a fifth of your entire scalp and cranial. So if you imagine, most of you I'm sure should know this, the general rule, your eyes sit just above the center line of your scalp. So between that and halfway down would be the end of your nose, and halfway between that and the mantle would be your mouth. Your mouth, that line of your mouth, the center line of your mouth, what's called the sternum, which is like storehouse and simian put together. Yeah. I'm not really sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but yeah, the sternum is your mouth. It's the opening of your mouth. In line with that would be your jawline, which you can just now drag out. As you can see, we have a pretty human looking head, pretty beautiful, looks awesome. Like, you can instantly turn this into an anime manga character easily, or create a real life sculpt out of it. But that's just from the front view. Bad news slash good news, once we rotate it, ooh, it looks a little lopsided, doesn't it? So we change into our right orthographic view, which, by the way, you can do that by clicking on these gizmos. So you can numpad 3 to go into the right view, or you can just, you know, click on these gizmos and it will flip it around. That's the back view. So if you keep clicking, it will kind of just keep flowing through. So now this is the right view, and if you hover over it, as you can see, it suggests to you the shortcut key for the view that you're flipping to. Okay, so now as you can see, it's kind of lopsided. In general, look, the human head is a little lopsided, so it should have a bit of an angle to it. The line between your mantle or your chin and the top of your forehead is kind of there's a little bit of an angle to it, but not as intense as this one looks. So from here, what we'll do is we'll take the grab brush, and pull there a bit, and just to get a little bit of an extension. So now we have a slight angle instead of it being so intense. And then from there we will drag out the cranial, the back of the skull, from the corona. So here we're pulling up the coronal out, and you're just dragging out the back of the scalp and trying to get to fill out the form. And by the way, in general, your form in terms of this at this angle will serve at the same length as from the top down to your chin. So these will be two ovals that are more or less the same in size. So now that we've dragged the back of the scalp out, which looks just about right, I just use my eyes to measure, but you can be more pedantic and do it otherwise. Alright, and then from here we just zoom in a little bit more. Let me just enlarge the brush a bit, and then we drag out our jawline, which will come to just about just over halfway ish of your sculpt, which your ear will be coming from here, in general. So then there you have we have our jawline, and deciding on how high it'll go, it should be just about that length, like we said, about a fifth of the sculpt line is the jaw, and there we have it. But we're not done yet. One more. Now it seems alright and perfect until we come to our top view, which you can go into the top view by pressing the little squiggly line above your above the tab button. Yeah, and you can see, not so exciting. We have a little bit of an alien head, a little triangulated head. If you follow my methodology and how I went about it, it'll most certainly always look this way when you push and pull, depending on the positioning of your brushes. But this is a sure method of working with it. It'll get you the exact same results every time. Then you just kind of zoom out a little bit with a bit of an enlarged brush, and then zoom back in a little bit and just fill out that cranial. And remember, towards the back it will extend a little bit further out than your forehead, so you want to just kind of extend it out a little bit more, and there we have it, a little alien-y looking head. But we're still not done, as you can see, which is a pretty cool form. If you're looking to create like an alien type form, this will be cool. It'll also make a nice looking helmet. What we're missing now is a little bit of volume in our cheeks, aren't we? So what we can do for that is we press I and switch to the inflate brush, and still with the smooth brush, smooth fall off on the brush, we will just fill in a little bit of volume here just to get a little bit of a better form. And there we have it. And just now we can have a nice look at how it looks. It's looking pretty decent right now. With that being said, now we can just reduce our brush a little bit. And I want you to remember one thing that's important when you're sculpting, is that your bony landmarks will usually define how your character will look. So by bony landmarks, it's exactly things like where your forehead comes in, so those horny things that I'm telling you about. Right, horny things, get it? So we just slightly smooth that down. If you notice, you're automatically getting a very realistic human-like form just from doing that alone, just from understanding that about the anatomy. And another thing, then we know we've got our cheekbones and where they would stand out. So with that, you kind of have an idea of the size of the head and the space that we're filling. And then just push Control on your keyboard and just brush over the model. Then you have an idea of where you're going to position your eyes, and remember, just above halfway. Okay, now we're just going to inflate back in, flowing into that cheekbone area, and your eye area. Eye sockets are automatically set. We're not doing anything hectic here, we're just blocking out. Then we know halfway between the eyes, the eye sockets and the mantle, we can just inflate there, knowing that okay, our nose will come there. Then just reduce this here for the dip, for the nose bridge. Reduce that. Press control on your keyboard. What that will do is that it will do the opposite of the brushwork. So inflate. When you push control, what that will do is then cause it to reduce, to do the opposite motion. So inflate, which inflates like a balloon, like if you're blowing into a balloon. Now you're doing the opposite, you're deflating the mesh when you press control. That's typical of in every brush. Pressing control will make it do its opposite. And if you hold shift with any brush active, it turns it into a smooth brush. As I hold shift, when you start brushing, I don't know if you noticed there on the left, the brush sets, it switches from using an inflate brush and activates the smooth brush. So if you want to smooth out while you're sculpting or doing anything on your mesh, that's just the easiest way to get it done without worrying. And until you like the kind of volume you have, you can switch to the grab brush and just give a little nose extension there, nasal extension. Then we can take the inflate brush again and just inflate the area where our mouth will come in, and we'll have a general idea of where we are sculpting and the part that we will be working with the most here. And now, as you can see, we're still lacking a bit more form. Coming to the back view, and once again, inflate brush. You can do this with a grab brush if you prefer as well. Just fill out the volume a little bit better. You can just reduce a little bit as well, and let's add a bit more volume to it here at the back, just so it looks better. Use a little inflate overall. Hold shift and smooth it down until we're kind of happy with the general form that we have. And I know it looks weird and offish, but trust me, if you want to create a great sculpt that anatomically will work, this is how you will go about it. Even though it doesn't feel right, trust me, it is correct. As you can see, once you drag it out a little bit, get a little bit of form. Our sculpt is looking good, and our basic head block out is done. And that will be about it. Let me actually as well within this tutorial, so we can kind of get things going, because in the next tutorial we'll go into the idea of doing all the detailing. This is just for basic blocking. What we can do for now is grab the mask brush, which you could just press M on your keyboard. Oh, wait, hold on. That's the box mask, not the one I'm looking for. There's a mask. Shift F to control the strength. Click and when Shift F, and when you drag your mouse to the right, it will increase the strength. Drag it to the left of the brush position, it will reduce the strength of it. So increase the strength. There we go. Release. What you want to do is adjust the fall off, maybe to an inverse square, which would be nice to work with. It's not too bad. You can use the smooth brush on its own. Let's reduce the selection there a little bit, because we want it to kind of drag out from there. If you noticed, your chin area actually doesn't extend too far forward from your neck, so this is the best way to go about it. And we're just gonna quickly mask out the sculpt. Grab brush and drag, zoom out a little bit and drag, and this is where our neck area will go. Very nice and easy, simple, gets us a bit of a nice form. I know this is dragging out a little bit too long, excuse the pun, but I want you all to understand this and get this, and it will just help you get just perfect results every time. especially if you're working with a very realistic character. This will be the best way to go about it. And then we drag in a little bit, get that nice dent from the base of the cranial, which actually, if we switch directly into our right view, I want you to understand something anatomically here, is that the line between your mouth and to the back of the cranial is almost exactly in line. So your scalp actually ends somewhere here within, but this space here is the muscle tissue of the trapezius. That's why we drag it out from there. But your scalp arches inward and ends somewhere there, leaving a hole, and then attaching to the jawline, which is the mandible, and which then has a tendon which attaches between it and the back of the cranial towards the back of the ear. And yeah, so that's the general reason why you have that form. Then you can just press Alt M on your keyboard and it will release the mask. It will remove the mask. Sometimes you get a little bit of a glitch that, you know, then it's not the entire mask that goes. Not really a preferable thing, but it's workable. Now there's one of two methods we can go about this in terms of fixing this form up. If we reduce the strength of the brush for one, and then hold shift to use the smooth brush, we can just smooth out our form. But as you can see, it's not that easy to smooth out well because of the general fact that there is a stretching of our normals. And so to fix that, we can do that within our detailing. But let me quickly show you this right here and now, in case all you want to see is just a basic block out, since that is done. So let's bring back our jawline, which is actually not so deep, by the way. Let me just make it more accurate for y'all, so you don't have to struggle as much. I would have left it as is, but let me be a nice guy about this tutorial. So your jawline actually doesn't extend all that high. Most people make that mistake of having this massively long jawline. It's not at all like that. Human body doesn't function that way. Sculpts that never look good, it's generally due to small things like that that people don't pay attention to. So as you can see there, now we have more of a human-like form and not this weird demonoid thing. What we can do for one, so I keep trying to save here, not very, we can just activate dynamic topology. As we know, dynamic topology, what it will do is it automatically triangulates your entire mesh to allow you to add more detailing. So instead of working with quads, as you can see now, all of these have become triangles instead of squares. These still look like squares because it's not smoothed out, but if we press tab and go into edit mode, you can see the subdivisions it's added in a diagonal line and form. All of that is done so it can triangulate them all, and that's what dynamic topology does, since it makes it more dynamic, diagonal, and that's its function. So we can either do it that way, and now if you notice, press shift, we can bring in our clay brush, which is over here, or press C on your keyboard. What you can do is reduce its strength to 0. It's still one of my favorite methods of working. I know the new methods, which I will show you in the next video, so watch the next video and I'll show you a different method. This is a bit of an older method which I enjoy, but with the strength at 0, just click on all these stretched out UVs, and what it will do is add in the detailing of at a 12 pixel level of size. And I keep it at relative so I can zoom in and just add in a bit more detail where I prefer to, and zoom out and reduce it where I don't need it. That way I don't have to work with a super complex mesh that is difficult that it will become difficult to keep sculpting in the future. So that's a very clever way to work with it. It's far more controlled. It's an older method of doing things, but I still think it's the better method than the newer ways. But in the next tutorial, when we start doing the detailing of the sculpt, then I will show you another method for how we get this whole process done. And there's our block out. Any questions in the video, comments, feel free to add. And oh, excuse me there, switch the grab brush, and let's just fix this form a little bit. Let's get this to be a bit more accurate and have something nice to work with as a base in our next video, when we go into the detailing of the sculpting. And perfect. There's our basic block art. Alrighty then guys, well, cheers, see you in the next tutorial.